A group of men were exploring a rocky area when they noticed a deep pit in the ground. Curious, they walked closer and looked down inside. That's when they saw a woman standing at the bottom. She was holding something in her arms, cradling it carefully as if it were a baby. But when the camera zoomed in, the shape looked wrong. Whatever she was holding wasn't a baby. Even stranger, the woman herself barely moved. She simply stood there, staring up toward the men above. The situation made them so uneasy that none of them dared climb down to investigate. Instead, they began praying out loud and left the place as quickly as possible. To this day, no one knows who that woman was, or what she was holding in her arms. A man in Africa captured something interesting one morning.
Y'all seen this? Y'all see that? Look at that. This takes place in Africa. What is that? What was that we just saw? Wow.
An object was flying fast, gliding smoothly through the air. It had no visible wings, engines, or lights, and it didn't make any sound. Some thought it could be a new type of aircraft, a human-made invention testing unusual flight patterns. Others wondered if it might be something not from here. Does it look familiar to you? A group of friends were out at night when something unusual appeared in the sky. Curious, they decided to follow it, eventually reaching a quiet desert area. It didn't take long before the object began to descend. When it landed, they moved closer instead of backing away. That's when they noticed something near it, a figure they believed was a grey alien. At first, it seemed small, but as they approached, the figure began to move and slowly stood up.
Miren amigos, miren amigos. Mira, güey, sí lo estás agarrando, mames. Sí. Se está moviendo, se está moviendo. Sí. Vente. No mames, güey, mira, güey. No mames. Amigos, ¿cómo le hablamos a estos güeyes? No mames, ¿qué hacen? Ay, coño, puta madre. No mames, vete a la verga, güey. ¿Qué es esa mamá?
It was much larger than they expected. The group stopped, unsure of what they were actually looking at, and ran off. Now it's up to you whether you believe it or not. A cave explorer shared terrifying footage recorded inside an unexplored cave system. As he made his way through the tunnels, everything seemed normal. Until, without warning, he heard this.
Hello?
The sound doesn't match common cave noises such as dripping water, airflow, or known animal calls. No source of the noise is visible on camera. According to the explorer, the sound didn't appear to come from wildlife. He described it as humanoid, but definitely not human. As the recording continues, the sound grows louder and closer. The footage ends abruptly, with no further visual information. Skeptics claim the video is fake. Others believe it may be evidence that something unknown could be living deep within these cave systems. A Reddit user named BodyFounder was exploring the desert when they stumbled upon a bone. They posted it online, hoping someone might have answers. One commenter suggested it could be a right human femur, noting how fragile and bleached it looked, possibly exposed on the surface for a long time. Others pointed out that desert finds like this often turn out to be animal bones from large mammals like deer or other ungulates, which can look surprisingly human at first glance. No definitive answer was ever posted, and without more context, the mystery remains. A woman in New Mexico was home alone late one night at her desert home when something outside her window caught her attention. She checked her security camera and saw this. A figure moving slowly through the darkness, lit only by the faint glow of the moon. At first it was clearly visible, but as she kept watching, something unsettling happened. The figure simply disappeared from the frame. Some people believe it could have been a camera glitch or a compression error, but if that's true, then there had to be someone out there in the first place, which raises an even more unsettling question. Who was outside her home that night, and why were they in such a remote location? Others think it could be something harder to explain, something that was never fully there to begin with. Reddit user Bortaki34 shared something unusual. Gravediggers in Turkey reportedly began uncovering strange objects inside graves during their work in a cemetery. According to the post, some of these items were placed alongside the dead, wrapped materials, animal remains, and even everyday objects like spoons. The gravediggers claimed they had come across dozens of similar findings over time, suggesting it wasn't just a one-time occurrence. Some believe these objects could be linked to local spiritual or cultural practices, meant to protect or influence the dead. Others think they're simply misunderstood burial customs or remnants of older traditions. But they all seem to agree on one thing. Whatever they are, it's better not to touch them. A group of friends were on a day hike through the Sonoran Desert in Arizona. While walking, one of them decided to snap a photo to share with family and friends. But later that day, when their family replied, it wasn't the reaction they were expecting. Instead of commenting on the hike, they pointed out something strange in the background. On a nearby hill, a figure could be seen. It appeared to be wearing a dark hoodie and a white mask, partially hidden behind the bushes. The group had already passed that spot without noticing anyone there, leaving them with an unsettling question. Who or what had been watching them from the desert, and why were they dressed that way? Could they have been participating in some kind of ritual? A video posted on TikTok shows a hiker traveling deep in the Mojave Desert, several miles from any town. The area appears completely empty, with no signs of people, tracks, or wildlife until this happened. After hearing a scream, the hiker runs off, unable to see anything that could have made the sound. It felt out of place and unsafe. A 13-year-old girl named Christina Plante from Arizona was last seen in May 1994. She was walking away from her home, reportedly heading toward a nearby horse stable where she kept her horse. After that, she disappeared. A major search was launched at the time, but no trace of her was ever found. Eventually, the case went cold and remained that way for decades. Then, many years later, something unexpected happened. Christina was found alive in 2026, at the age of 44. Authorities confirmed her identity using modern investigative methods that helped reopen and finally resolve the long cold case. However, the circumstances behind her disappearance were not what many might assume from online speculation. Later reporting suggested this was not a classic abduction mystery, but likely linked to a complicated family situation from the time, with her identity only fully confirmed decades later. Still, for over 30 years, she was completely off the radar. And for those who followed the case back then, it remains a story that raises one question. How does someone disappear into life itself and stay hidden for so long? Residents of a small town in Asia reported hearing strange sounds at night coming from an abandoned cave a few kilometers away. Curious, he decided to investigate one evening. When they entered the cave, they saw something that immediately made their hearts race, and they recorded it. Oman appeared to be crawling. Was it simply an elderly woman lost and confused in the cave, or was she not entirely human? Sadly, no updates were ever provided. A group was traveling through a desert when they recorded this video. A massive sandstorm was approaching quickly. Sandstorms can be extremely dangerous. They reduce visibility to almost zero, can make it impossible to navigate, and carry debris that can cause injury or damage vehicles. Being caught in one unprepared can be life-threatening. The video provides no further context. Did they leave on time? Did they wait in the car? What happened next? We don't know. In December 1989, a disturbing discovery was made in the Arizona desert. Travelers who had taken a wrong turn near a remote stretch of highway stumbled upon the remains of a young woman laying alone in the sand. Her life had been taken. But investigators had no idea who she was. With no identification and no leads, the case quickly went cold, and the woman became only known as a Jane Doe. Then, just 2 days later, nearly 400 miles away in Oxnard, California, inside a public park restroom, someone heard the sound of babies crying. When they looked inside, they discovered 2 infant girls lying on the floor. The babies had been left there. Authorities searched for their parents, but no one came forward. Eventually, the girls were placed up for adoption and given new lives. For more than 30 years, the 2 cases remained completely separate, until modern DNA technology changed everything. As adults, the twins began searching for their biological family, and what investigators discovered was shocking. The unidentified woman found in the Arizona desert was their mother. After decades, the Jane Doe finally had a name, but the most important question still remains unanswered. What really happened to their mother, and who left the babies hundreds of miles away? Even today, the case remains unsolved. A Redditor was walking through a remote area of the California desert when they came across this: 3 mobile phones, lying on the ground, completely burned. But that wasn't all. Scattered around them were remnants of burnt mail, binders, and handwritten documents. Like someone had tried to destroy everything all at once. Out there, far from anyone. It didn't feel random. Some people believe it could have been an attempt to wipe data, connected to something serious, maybe even a crime. Because if someone went that far to destroy those phones, what was on them? Reddit user Maria Rosie 555 was parked near a deserted house known locally for strange activity. She and her friend stayed inside the car with a spirit box. The device began giving disturbing responses to simple questions. Soon after, they heard a tapping sound at the back of the car and recalled seeing a shadow move past the rear. They took a photo to see if anything appeared in the image, and it showed a pair of glowing eyes. From inside the car, they scanned the area with a flashlight from all sides but found nothing. No one was around. Feeling unsafe, they left the area shortly after. Reddit user What'sItToYa69 shared an eerie image taken in their old village house in Pakistan. The family had returned to the place after years and took a picture in front of the now abandoned structure. But when they later reviewed the photos, they saw this. Peering in from a dark, broken doorway was a face-like shape. They were sure no one was inside, and it didn't look like a living person. The colors and clarity weren't right. So if it's not a living person, could it be a deceased one? A woman named Hannah Moody, a 31-year-old hiker known for sharing her outdoor experiences online, set out alone in the Arizona desert. It was supposed to be a routine hike. Earlier that day, she headed toward the Gateway Trailhead in the McDowell Sonoran Preserve near Scottsdale. When she stopped responding to messages later that evening, concern quickly grew. Friends reported her missing, and when authorities checked the area, they found her car still parked at the trailhead, but there was no sign of her. A large search effort began. Police, drones, and helicopters combed the desert through the night. The next morning, search teams made a heartbreaking discovery. Hannah's body was found roughly 600 yards off the trail. Investigators reported no signs of foul play or trauma. What makes the story especially haunting is how normal everything seemed just hours before. She had shared positive messages, talking about enjoying her hikes and appreciating life. A powerful and heartbreaking reminder of how quickly things can change. May she rest in peace. A video surfaced online showing a place in Oman that doesn't look like itself at all. For most of the year, the land is dry and barren, just endless desert. But then, after unusually heavy rain, entire stretches of that desert suddenly flood with water, turning sand into large, sudden, temporary lakes in places that normally never see standing water. Locals have shared footage of these dramatic desert lakes forming after storms, and some people online even compare them to a pop-up oasis because the change is so unexpected. The transformation can be so striking that it almost doesn't look real. And while scientists understand that heavy rainfall and flash floods create these temporary bodies of water, the exact patterns and frequency can still surprise even experts. A group of hikers are making their way along a desert trail at night, each holding a flashlight as they moved through the darkness. At one point, they stopped to take a break. One of them pulled out a camera and took a photo of the group standing together under the night sky. Just a memory to look back on later. But when they later uploaded the photos from the trip, one of them noticed this. Behind them, a dark, childlike figure could be seen, standing just a short distance away. No one remembered anyone being there. They tried to explain it as a shadow, but the shape, the details, even what looked like faint eyes didn't match any normal shadow cast by light. So what was really standing behind them that night? Could something sinister have happened at that exact location? A man was in a remote desert area of the Arabian Peninsula when he saw what he believed was an Abu Fanous.
هذا يا الربع أبو فانوس. هذا أبو فانوس. شفتوا اللي الشير هذا أبو فانوس. واضح أبو فانوس. شوفوا الحين يبدأ يختفي. شوفوا بدأ يكبس. شوفوا يختفي. شوفوا هذا موقع أبو فانوس الحال غير المواقع الاستراحات. شوفوا اختفى. شوفوا بدأ يختفي. شوفوا الحين يختفي عشان تعرفون أبو فانوس. في واحد من الشباب شوف ولع. شفت ولع الثاني. شوف هذا الجن أبو فانوس. قسم برب الكعبة إنه جن أبو فانوس. حلفت لكم بالله. شفتوه هذا أبو فانوس. شوف قاعد يكبس. طلعوا الشلة. طلعوا. شفتوهم أبو فانوس. في واحد.
Abu Fanous is a light that is said to appear at night, moving slowly across the land. In local belief, it is linked to jinn and thought to mislead travelers. People say it can pull them off their path and toward danger, such as pits, rough terrain, or complete disorientation. Some even claim that following the light has caused people to become lost and exhausted. But how can we be sure it's really an Abu Fanous, or if it's just something else entirely? Retired U.S. Air Force Major General William Neal McCasland walked out of his home in Albuquerque, New Mexico on the morning of February 27, 2026. And then, he vanished. Earlier that morning, everything seemed normal. A repairman had visited the house around 10 a.m., but sometime after that, McCasland left on foot. When his wife returned home shortly after noon, he was gone. What immediately raised concern was what he left behind. His phone, his prescription glasses, and his wearable devices. All still inside the house. It was completely out of character. By that same day, authorities were alerted, and a search began almost immediately. A silver alert was issued, and deputies started going door to door, checking homes, nearby trails, and the surrounding desert terrain. As days passed, the search intensified. Helicopters scanned the area using infrared cameras. Drones and search dogs covered miles of rugged land. Investigators canvassed more than 700 homes and reviewed hours of surveillance footage. At one point, a grey sweatshirt was found about a mile from his home, but it was never definitively confirmed to be his. Despite all of this, there were no clear signs of where he went, and the environment itself made things even harder. Unseasonably warm weather caused the rocky terrain to retain heat, making infrared searches nearly useless. The entire landscape lit up, masking any possible human trace. Weeks later, authorities still couldn't answer the most basic questions. Where did he go? Why did he leave? And was anyone else involved? Investigators have said there's no clear evidence of foul play, but they also haven't ruled anything out. One detail that stands out: McCasland had reportedly experienced episodes of mental fog prior to his disappearance, though officials emphasized he was still highly intelligent and capable. Some believe he may have gone for a walk and become lost or injured in the surrounding terrain, an area filled with cliffs, canyons, and hidden drop-offs. Others point to the unusual circumstances: an experienced outdoorsman leaving without essential items, and disappearing without a trace in broad daylight. Now, weeks into the search, the reality is becoming harder to face. If he made it into the wilderness, the chances of survival grow smaller with each day. All we can do now is hope for a miracle. This man was out in the desert when a strange and rare event happened. Suddenly, the sand in front of him began moving, almost like a wave rolling across the ground. At first, it looks impossible, as if the desert itself is flowing, but experts say this can happen during desert flash floods. Even if it isn't raining where you are, a storm miles away can send a surge of water racing across the desert. Because the ground is extremely dry and hard, it can't absorb the water fast enough. Instead, the flood spreads out across the surface, pushing sand, mud, and debris forward like a moving wall. What looks like flowing sand is actually a powerful sheet of floodwater carrying the desert with it. And despite how slow it may appear on camera, these floods can be extremely dangerous. Flash floods in deserts can arrive suddenly and sweep away people, vehicles, and anything in their path. About 1 year ago, a man living in the high desert of Southern California noticed a figure early in the morning. It was walking beyond his property line, around 5 acres away. The figure appeared unusually large, estimated at 7 to 8 feet tall. Due to the distance, no clear features were visible. It appeared male and moved with a heavy stomping gait. The man went outside to observe and raised his phone. The figure then turned in his direction. He took a photo and went inside to inform his wife. When both returned outside, the figure was seen moving toward the nearby hills. They were confused. What was anyone doing around there in the middle of the desert? An explorer was hiking in a remote desert area when he reached the edge of a deep cave below him. From inside, strange growling sounds echoed upward. As he recorded, he pointed into the darkness, trying to locate where the sound was coming from. The area is known to be home to bears, so it could simply be wildlife moving through the cave system. Or do you think the sounds don't quite match anything familiar? Two men were exploring a mountainside when something unusual caught their eyes. Hovering just above the hilltop was a white thing. Curious, the men ran uphill trying to get closer, but as they reached it, the orb rose into the sky. Confused, they uploaded the footage online, leaving many others just as puzzled. A Reddit user found a spiral notebook laying in the middle of a desert. Inside were college notes, but the last page stood out. It read, "If you see this, you mean a lot to me. You have been a huge part of my life and experiences while in college. You have made most of my college amazing and memorable. You are much appreciated and loved by me. This is just a message for my passwords, electronics, people to contact." Below that was a list of contacts, along with references to passwords and devices. There was also a brief section listing 3 people involved in an incident, written in a noticeably different style. It read, "Person 1, mom of child provoking incident. Person 2, confronting mom. Person 3, other member of person 2's party." Online, many believed it could be a farewell note and urged the finder to contact authorities, and they did. In a follow-up post, the Reddit user explained that police took the notebook as evidence. Later, one of the listed contacts confirmed that the notebook's owner was alive and safe. It turned out to be nothing, but it was a good thing authorities were informed. What if it was something bad? A 2-year-old boy named Bowden Allen wandered away from his home in Seligman, Arizona on April 14, 2025. The area around him was remote, surrounded by open desert and dangerous wildlife. As soon as he was reported missing, a large search operation began. More than 40 rescuers, along with a helicopter, searched through the night. But for hours, there was no sign of him. Then, about 16 hours later, a rancher made a surprising discovery on his property, roughly 7 miles from where the boy had disappeared. The child was there, and nearby was a large ranch dog named Buford. Buford, an Anatolian Pyrenees known for protecting the land from predators, had found the boy. According to the rancher, the dog located Bowden under a tree and stayed with him, even guiding him for part of the journey back towards safety. Some estimates suggest the dog may have accompanied him for at least a mile. The boy had spent the entire night alone in the desert, but incredibly, he was found alive, thanks to Buford. While exploring a remote part of the Colorado desert, this person came across something that immediately stopped them in their tracks. In the middle of the empty landscape sat a small, damaged doll, placed carefully in front of a toy piano, as if it had been playing just moments earlier. But the longer you look at it, the more unsettling it becomes. There are no footprints, no signs of anyone nearby. Some people believe it could be an art piece, or something someone left behind during a trip, but out there, in such an isolated place, that explanation doesn't fully sit right. More than 100 years ago, archaeologists digging through ancient sites in southern Iraq discovered something they still struggle to explain today. Buried among pottery, tools, and the remains of old buildings were dozens of small clay figurines. At first glance, they looked human, but the faces told a different story. Each figurine had a strange reptile-like head with large snouts and large almond-shaped eyes. Some even appeared to be holding infants that shared the same unusual features. The artifacts date back nearly 7,000 years to a civilization that existed long before written history in Mesopotamia. Because of this, no one knows what these figures were meant to represent. Some researchers believe they could depict ancient gods or spiritual beings connected to early religious beliefs. Others think they may show people wearing ceremonial masks during rituals. Whatever their true meaning was, the designs were clearly intentional and repeated many times, which leaves one lingering question. Why did one of the world's earliest civilizations choose to represent themselves with reptile-like faces? Are reptilians a real thing, after all? In February 2010, the McStay family suddenly vanished from their home in Fallbrook, California. Joseph McStay, his wife Summer, and their 2 young sons were last seen on February 4th. Inside the house, everything appeared normal. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, and no evidence the family had planned a trip. Food was still in the kitchen. The family dogs were found wandering outside the home days later. At first, investigators were unsure whether the family had left voluntarily or met with foul play. A few days after their disappearance, the McStay family's Isuzu Trooper was discovered abandoned near the US-Mexico border. Soon after, grainy surveillance footage surfaced showing what appeared to be the family of 4 crossing into Mexico. With no clear proof of a crime, the case stalled. For years, theories ranged from voluntary relocation to cartel involvement. The McStay's relatives, however, insisted the family would never have left without telling anyone. Then, nearly 4 years later, the case took a devastating turn. In November 2013, construction workers in the Mojave Desert uncovered 2 shallow graves. Inside were the remains of 4 people. DNA testing confirmed the remains belonged to Joseph, Summer, and their 2 sons. A sledgehammer found near the graves was believed to be the murder weapon. Investigators focused on Chase Merritt, Joseph McStay's business associate and former partner. Evidence presented at trial showed Merritt was struggling financially and had allegedly embezzled money from their business. Prosecutors also presented phone records placing Merritt near the McStay home on the night the family vanished, and surveillance showing him near the desert burial site. In 2019, after a lengthy trial, Chase Merritt was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Merritt has continued to deny responsibility. A clip surfaced showing what appears to be a heavy mosquito infestation in an unknown desert location. The air itself seems to be filled with swarms of insects gathering in overwhelming numbers. In recent years, similar outbreaks have been reported more frequently, raising concerns about what might be driving the increase. People point to climate shifts, urban expansion, and changes in local ecosystems as possible reasons behind the growing spread of insect populations. But without any clear information, it's hard to say anything for sure. Bombay Beach is a small ghost town on the eastern shore of the Salton Sea, deep in the California desert, and today it feels like something out of a post-apocalyptic story. But it didn't always look like this. In the 1950s and 60s, Bombay Beach was a small but lively resort town. Tourists came to fish, boat, and vacation along the shores of what was once promoted as California's Riviera. Over time, though, the lake began to change. Because the Salton Sea has no natural outlet, fertilizers and agricultural runoff built up in the water. The salinity kept rising, massive fish die-offs began, and the shoreline filled with the smell of decay. Storms in the 1970s and 80s flooded part of the town with contaminated water, damaging homes and infrastructure. After that, many residents left, and large parts of Bombay Beach were abandoned. Today, the area is known for its broken houses, rusted trailers, and empty streets, giving it an eerie atmosphere that often appears in films, music videos, and photography projects. Many visitors claim they have seen and heard things they shouldn't have. They say it's haunted. TikTok user Jose Maria Rios Castillo, a biker, along with his friends, were riding along a dirt road one night when something strange appeared on his camera. As Jose broke away from the group and took a narrow trail, his bike light caught a sudden movement in the middle of the path. What he saw looked like a woman wearing a black gown, with long brown hair completely covering her face. Some say it could have been a tree trunk or just a trick of the shadows in the night. Others think the way Jose immediately reacted shows he wasn't convinced it was ordinary. On February 26th, a photo was shared on the mysterious creature's Facebook page that quickly drew attention. It was posted by a man named Matt Moneymaker, who suggested it could be possible evidence of a Bigfoot sighting in South Dakota. The image shows a dark, upright figure standing in the middle of a vast, empty landscape. It could simply be a person seen from a distance, but commenters argue the build and posture don't quite match an ordinary human. What do you think? In May 2025, what was meant to be a simple camping trip turned into a tragedy. Two Arizona high school students, 18-year-old Pandora Kjolsrud and 17-year-old Evan Clark, both students at Arcadia High School, set out for a day trip to the Mount Ord area of the Tonto National Forest. They left on May 25, 2025, planning to return the next day, but they never came back. After the teens were reported missing, a search was launched. On May 27, 2024, their bodies were discovered near a campsite in the remote Mount Ord area. The scene immediately raised serious concerns, and investigators began working to piece together what had happened during those missing days. Evidence collected from the area, including DNA, eventually led authorities to 31-year-old Thomas Brown. Investigators say his DNA was linked not only to the victims, but also to their vehicle and items found nearby. Brown was arrested and now faces 2 counts of first-degree murder. He is currently being held on a $2 million cash-only bond as the case moves forward. What began as a routine outdoor trip ended in a devastating loss. On December 1st, 2025, someone recorded this strange clip in Arizona. In the footage, a glowing blue sphere can be seen hovering silently in the sky above the desert. Some people pointed out that Arizona has recently seen a noticeable increase in reported UFO sightings. Because of that, many began wondering if the mysterious blue sphere could somehow be connected to those sightings, but so far, no one has been able to explain it. Is it some kind of experimental technology, a strange atmospheric phenomenon, or something otherworldly? A person was walking through the desert when they noticed something strange. A small patch of dirt forming a perfect circle. It looked out of place, almost too perfect to be natural. Curious, they reached down and disturbed it, and suddenly, this happened. From beneath the ground, a spider burst out, then quickly pulled the door shut behind it. The entrance blended seamlessly with the surrounding dirt, making it nearly impossible to spot. This is known as a trapdoor spider, a master of camouflage that hides just beneath the surface, waiting for prey to pass by. So, next time you're walking through the desert, be careful where you step. On the evening of April 24th, 1964, police officer Lonnie Zamora was on patrol near Socorro, New Mexico, when a routine moment suddenly turned into something far more unusual. At around 5:45 p.m., he was chasing a speeding car along a quiet desert road, when a loud roar filled the air. Moments later, he saw a flame in the distance. Thinking it might be an explosion, possibly from a nearby dynamite shack, Zamora abandoned the chase and drove toward it. As he approached, the terrain forced him up a rough incline. When he reached a clearer view, he noticed something unusual about 150 to 200 yards away. At first, he thought it was an overturned car, but as he got closer, he realized it wasn't a vehicle at all. It was a smooth metallic object, oval-shaped, almost egg-like, resting near the ground. Beside it stood two small figures dressed in white coveralls. They appeared startled, as if they hadn't expected to be seen. Zamora quickly radioed dispatched and stepped out of his vehicle. Then, suddenly, the roar returned. A bright blue and orange flame burst from beneath the object. Fearing it might explode, Zamora took cover behind his patrol car, but kept watching. The object lifted off the ground, rose into the air, and then quickly disappeared into the distance. When another officer arrived shortly after, they found scorched brush and marks on the ground, but no clear footprints or tracks beyond Zamora's. The case was later investigated by the US Air Force as part of Project Blue Book, and officially classified as unknown. A man in Saudi Arabia shared this clip warning other desert goers. At first, everything looks completely normal, until he tosses a stone. It turns out the sand was actually covering a hidden pond, perfectly camouflaged by the surrounding desert, which can be very deep and dangerous, especially when you can't see what you're actually stepping on. In 1960, a quiet stretch of the Arizona desert became the scene of a haunting discovery. A schoolteacher walking near Sand Creek Wash, close to the town of Congress, Arizona, came across the remains of a young girl. No one knew who she was. With no name, no matching missing person report, and few leads to follow, investigators gave her a temporary identity: Little Miss Nobody. For decades, her case became one of Arizona's most heartbreaking mysteries. Despite extensive efforts, investigators were unable to determine who she was. Then, more than 60 years later, advances in forensic science finally reopened the door. In 2022, investigators used modern DNA technology and genetic genealogy to identify the child. Her name was Sharon Lee Gallegos. Sharon was just 4 years old and she was from New Mexico. On July 21st, 1960, Sharon was playing in her grandmother's backyard in Alamogordo when she was taken. Witnesses reported seeing her leave with a woman, possibly accompanied by a man, but at the time no clear suspect was identified. 10 days later, on July 31st, 1960, Sharon's remains were found in the Arizona desert, more than 500 miles from her hometown. The distance between where she vanished and where she was found only deepened the mystery. While Sharon finally has her name back, justice has not yet followed. Her death remains under investigation and no arrests have been announced. After more than 6 decades, Little Miss Nobody was no longer nobody. But the search for answers continues. In the mountains of New Mexico, something odd caught the attention of some internet explorers. A large white disc seemed to rise out of the ground, clearly visible on satellite images. It sits at an elevation of over 7,400 feet, far from any roads or houses, deep in the Sierra Ladrones. Some wonder if it's an abandoned structure or something left behind for reasons unknown, but others say it looks like a crashed UFO. The fact that it sits so isolated only makes it feel more unsettling. What do you think? Reddit user Aggravated Android was traveling through a remote desert when they came across something that felt completely out of place. In the middle of nowhere, they found a small motel filled with clown figures. Curious and a little uneasy, they stopped to take a closer look and snapped a photo. The entire place was covered in clowns. Inside, outside, everywhere you looked. And right next to it, an old cemetery. After doing some research, it turns out this place is very real, known as the Clown Motel in Tonopah, Nevada, often called America's scariest motel. It sits beside a historic miners' cemetery, where graves date back over a century, many tied to tragic deaths. Inside the motel, there are thousands of clown dolls and figurines, some donated by visitors from around the world, some even rumored to be haunted. Guests have reported strange experiences, unexplained noises, objects moving, and the constant feeling of being watched. Even paranormal investigators claim to have captured shadow figures and voices. Whether you believe the stories or not, one thing is certain: finding a place like this, in the middle of an empty desert, would make anyone stop and wonder why it exists at all, and who would actually stay there. On March 30th, 2026, a video was shared on Instagram by a creator known as Horrorlore, recorded in an open field at night. As the recording continues, a strange shape becomes visible in the distance. It appears human-like, but something about it doesn't feel natural. Moments later, the footage ends as the person quickly leaves the area, and the recording remains a mystery. While traveling through Egypt, a professional photographer visited a museum to see one of the country's most famous ancient statues. He decided to take a simple photo of the statue before moving on. At first, the picture looked completely normal. When the photographer looked at the image later, a blurry figure appeared near the statue. The shape looked like a person standing there, dressed in what seemed to resemble long robes. Some people even pointed out what looked like a headpiece similar to those worn by ancient Egyptian rulers. The strange part is that the photographer insists no one else was in the room at the time. So if that's true, who was standing next to the statue when the photo was taken? A hiker was out in the desert when he found something mind-blowing. The person recording initially assumed it was simply a reflection in water far below. But as they got a better look, there appeared to be a perfectly clear image of the sky, almost as if it was being seen from another angle entirely. It couldn't have been just a normal reflection, as the rope doesn't appear where it should on a mirrored surface. Maybe it was an optical illusion, or even just editing. But if it wasn't any of that, what would it mean? What could be on the other side? A 30-year-old mother of two named Angie Fuller set out on what should have been a normal drive through Australia's Northern Territory, but it would become one of the region's most haunting, unsolved cases. After spending Christmas with her family, Angie returned to Alice Springs, excited about a new job and a fresh start in life. On January 9, 2023, she was last seen on a CCTV at a truck stop just outside of town. She wasn't alone. She was with her boyfriend, later identified as Jake Jefferson Peters, someone her own family barely knew existed. Just hours later, everything changed. Sometime in the early morning, Angie's car, a burgundy Toyota Corolla, was involved in a violent incident on the remote Tanami Road. When police later found the vehicle, it was abandoned. No sign of Angie, no sign of anyone. According to her boyfriend's account, after the crash, the two of them ran off into the desert together, claiming they were being chased. He said they fled barefoot into complete darkness, before becoming separated somewhere in the vast outback. And that's where his story raises serious questions, because somehow he made it out, alone. He later reappeared and reported Angie missing nearly 2 days later, but to this day there's no clear explanation of how he navigated out of that remote desert, why he didn't seek help immediately, or what exactly happened in those missing hours. Police have called his behavior unusual, and he remains a person of interest. Not long after, he left the area, and was later arrested in another state for unrelated violent crimes. Meanwhile, Angie was never found. Search teams combed the harsh terrain using helicopters, bikes, and ground crews. But in a place that vast, clues disappear quickly. Police now believe she likely met with foul play within a critical 48-hour window after the crash. Her phone was never recovered. Her keys are still missing. And despite a reward now reaching up to $1 million, no one has come forward with answers. This photo was taken late at night while visiting Cemetery Hill. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary nighttime shot, until you take a closer look. In the frame, a tall white figure appears. Some viewers immediately called it a ghostly apparition. Others tried to debunk it, suggesting it might simply be a smear on the camera lens. So what do you make of it? A group of mountain climbers were high up on Antuco volcano in Chile when something unusual appeared in the sky above them. They noticed a bright, shiny object suspended motionless over the horizon. It didn't seem to move, didn't resemble any aircraft they recognized. Many called it a UFO, saying nothing in conventional aviation matched what they were seeing that day. Honestly, I have no clear explanation for what they saw that day. So what do you think it was? In the endless sands of the Sahara, a team of paleontologists stumbled across something that would change what we know about prehistoric life. Deep in the desert, they unearthed fossils of a massive predator, unlike anything they had ever seen before. This was a new species of Spinosaurus, a 40-foot-long giant they named Spinosaurus morabius, meaning astonishing. The team had come prepared for months of digging, knowing they might find nothing. But hours after reaching the site, they spotted a crest rising from the sand. It was the top of the skull. They knew instantly this was special. Its long, low snout and huge interlocking teeth were built to snatch enormous fish, making it a true river hunter of the ancient Sahara. The creature's sheer size and the strange shape of its crest set it apart from every other dinosaur known. What else might still be hidden in these remote sands? Reddit user Sarah Shoots Film was hiking along a remote desert trail with a group when they came across something that immediately stopped them in their tracks. In the middle of the empty landscape, there was a baby cot. Nearby, a few scattered pieces of clothing made the scene even more unsettling. Feeling uneasy, they carefully checked the cot. Unfortunately, it was empty. Still, the discovery raised questions. Some suggested it may have simply been left behind after a camping trip, but others weren't so sure. In 2009, a woman walking her dog near an abandoned construction site outside Albuquerque, New Mexico, made a disturbing discovery. Lying in the dirt was what appeared to be a human bone. At first, investigators thought it might be an isolated find, but when police began searching the area, they uncovered more remains, and then more again. In total, the remains of 11 people were discovered buried across the site of a halted housing development in the desert. Many of the victims were believed to be women who had gone missing years earlier, some disappearing as far back as 2 decades before the discovery. Several had struggled with addiction, and many of their families had been searching for answers for years. The shocking discovery forced investigators to reopen numerous cold cases. Detectives began re-examining old reports and missing persons files, hoping to finally give names to the victims. Authorities believe the remains may be connected to a serial offender, sometimes referred to as the West Mesa Bone Collector. But even after years of investigation, no one has ever been arrested. The most troubling question still remains. Who left those victims buried in the desert, and how did it go unnoticed for so long? A person out enjoying a day on their rural property in Brazil noticed something walking calmly across the land in broad daylight and started recording. As the figure moved closer into view, whatever it was didn't match any known animal. Many claimed it could be proof of a werewolf, a creature long tied to local legends. Others suggested it might be computer-generated, pointing to small inconsistencies in lighting and movement. Interestingly, when the footage was run through several AI analysis tools, it was considered authentic, but even that doesn't fully explain what's being seen. So was it just an animal, perhaps affected by disease, or was something unknown walking across that property? A 41-year-old man vanished without a trace after being seen near Blythe, California around 10:30 p.m. on February 10, 2026. Neighbors remembered him heading east, possibly toward the Grand Canyon in Arizona, but after that moment, nothing. His car wasn't clearly reported abandoned, and there was no obvious signs of what might have happened next. He was described as about 5 feet 10 inches tall, with brown hair and hazel eyes, marked by a tattoo of a guitar on his forearm and the number 88 on his shoulder. Every day, law enforcement follows up on tips, hoping someone might remember seeing him on the road, or walking through a small town, or turning off onto a hidden trail. But so far, all they have are questions. Where did he go that night? and why has no one seen him since? If you have any information that could help investigators, authorities urge you to come forward. A man working as a machine operator was on a late shift when something unexpected happened at his workplace. The machine he was operating suddenly broke down, leaving him alone in complete darkness. As he tried to figure out what to do, he began hearing a whistling sound. Unsettled, he kept recording, trying to stay calm as the noise continued in the silence. When he later uploaded the footage online looking for answers, some suggested it could be a nocturnal bird, like a patoo, known for its eerie, human-like calls. But others pointed to something far darker, linking it to the Latin American legend of El Silbón, an entity said to roam at night, marked by a chilling whistle that confuses those who hear it. So what was really out there with him in the darkness? On June 22nd, 2023, a woman was hiking in Church Rock with her daughter when the atmosphere around them suddenly changed. The area was already known for strange stories and local legends, but what they experienced left them shaken. As they walked along the hillside, they began hearing distant screams echoing through the landscape.
A child like screaming or crying, and I'm not like...
At first, it sounded like a child crying, high-pitched and unsettling. Then, moments later, they heard something even more disturbing. A man's voice, screaming. Panic set in. Without hesitation, they turned around and made their way back down the hill as quickly as they could. They didn't stay to find out what was making those sounds, and whatever was out there, they never saw it. 17-year-old Tanami T.T. Tovar had vanished after being dropped off at a residence in Salton City, and when she didn't answer her phone or show up as expected, her family grew desperate and frantic. Days turned into weeks with no answers, until December 21st, when a leg was discovered in a field near Vista del Mar. The discovery was grim and unsettling, and at first, investigators struggled to identify whose remains they had uncovered. As the weeks passed, DNA testing finally confirmed something every loved one dreaded. The leg belonged to Tanami. Authorities soon traced connections to a 51-year-old man named Abraham Feinblum, leading to his arrest on suspicion of murder and resisting a peace officer. Friends and family remember Tanami not for the brutal end to her story, but for her bright personality and the way she lit up a room. The investigation is still ongoing as authorities continue searching for answers about what truly happened to her. Ksar Draa is an isolated structure located in the Sahara near Timimon, Algeria. The structure sits alone in the desert, surrounded by vast dunes. From above, it appears almost circular in shape, rising from the sand like an old fortified settlement. Its exact origin and purpose are not clearly documented in widely accessible historical records. Some interpretations describe Ksar in the region as traditional fortified villages or caravan-related structures used for storage, shelter, or protection along desert trade routes. There are also discussions about historical population changes in the region, including possible past occupation by different communities, but these claims are not definitively established for this specific site. Because of the limited documentation, there is still no confirmed consensus on when it was built or what its original function was. What remains is a structure that clearly shows human design, but whose full story is still not fully known. In 1963, a man in Turkey was renovating his basement when he made a discovery that no one expected. While knocking down a wall, he noticed a small opening behind it. Curious, he looked inside and found a narrow tunnel leading deeper underground. What he had accidentally uncovered was something incredible. The tunnel led to a massive underground city hidden beneath the town of Derinkuyu. The city stretched nearly 85 meters below the surface and contained dozens of tunnels, rooms, and passageways carved directly into the rock. Even more surprising, the underground complex was large enough to shelter around 20,000 people along with their animals and food supplies. Inside were living quarters, storage rooms, wells, ventilation shafts, and even small churches where people once gathered. Historians believe the city was used as a hidden refuge during times of invasion, allowing entire communities to disappear underground for months at a time. For centuries, thousands of people may have been living their lives right beneath the ground. While out in the desert, a person noticed something disturbing and quickly took this photo. In the image, a strange black figure can be seen standing in the landscape. The shape appears humanoid, with unusually long arms, seemingly moving on all fours. Some believe it could be evidence of an unknown cryptid, something not yet documented. But what makes this photo suspicious is the lack of information behind it. There's no clear origin, no verified source, and no confirmation of where or when it was taken, which raises another possibility, that it could simply be AI generated or an elaborate hoax. So what are we really looking at here? A person was driving through a desert-like area when something unusual caught their attention in the sky. They noticed a dark swirling column floating high above the ground. It looked similar to a tornado. It was pitch black. And unlike a normal tornado, it wasn't touching the ground. It didn't move like smoke. It didn't behave like the wind. There are no clear answers to what it was, or where it appeared. On an excavation site near the ancient harbour of Failron, just outside Athens, Greece, archaeologists uncovered a burial site that immediately stood out. Dozens of skeletons, around 80 in total, were found buried together in long rows. What made the discovery especially disturbing was that many of them were still bound in iron shackles around their wrists. The remains were dated back to around 650 to 625 BC, a time of political unrest in ancient Athens. Analysis shows that many of the individuals were young and in good physical condition, suggesting they were not typical prisoners or the sick, but likely people executed under unusual circumstances. One leading theory is that they were followers of Cylon, an Olympic athlete who attempted a coup in Athens around 632 BC. According to ancient historians, the rebellion failed, and his supporters were captured and executed, possibly after being promised safe passage. However, there is no definitive proof linking these skeletons directly to that event. Researchers caution that while the timing fits, historical records from that period are limited and incomplete. So while the shackles suggest imprisonment or execution, their true identity remains unknown. Who these people were, why they were killed, and what exactly happened at that site is still a mystery more than 2,600 years later. The Exploring with Bear team ventured into a remote desert area near the Mexican border late at night. As they moved through the rocky terrain, they began noticing strange structures and holes scattered around them and decided to investigate.
Oh, look at this one. Nothing going on. I'm going to be chucking rocks.
Oh my gosh.
Look at this hole. This is weird. It's like people's been here digging. These are like dug holes. Any snipies? Look at this hole.
You and your fascination with holes.
Yeah, I love them. Look at this one. Whoa! What is doing this?
An animal?
There's tracks in here.
Jerry, don't go in there.
There's a lizard just went scooting up in there.
Oh my gosh.
Not long after, they started hearing something and noticing movement around them.
Did you hear? Oh, there's sort of a little hole. See these all little weird things all over? What is going on with that? Whoa.
I know, there was something very true.
Whoa.
Come on, Jerry, let's go back, please.
Where'd you hear it from? Over here?
I didn't hear it. I saw it. I saw it move.
You saw it move?
Yeah.
Over here?
Yes.
Well, let me go first then.
Oh my gosh, what if it's a room?
Well, let's look. Where'd you see it? Where'd you see it?
These things.
Right here.
And that way.
It moved coming down here? Like where we're going?
Yeah, to the right.
The sounds followed their path and stayed close as they made their way back to the car.
Ooh, did I just see eyes? I heard that. Did you hear that?
I feel like there's something in here. There's something that moved in here last time we was here. That's right. Right in this thing. Right in there somewhere. Can see houses out there in the distance now. So we're getting back to where we need to be. Whoa, 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 whoa. Well, hold on, Duber. Hold on, what was that?
Scary.
Hold on. Hold on.
Something's following us.
Okay. We're okay. Man, that's like a den. Whoa. That's like a den.
Something's in there.
Doesn't it look like some kind of den?
There's something spiraling.
As they neared the vehicle, they spotted movement below a nearby ridge.
What was it?
A what? Man, we're up there pretty high right now. What is that right there? Get your light down there. Like where mine's at.
Here.
I just seen something big moving down in there. Like right below the, see that edge? It's like right on the other side of that edge. Here, go. Go, 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 go.
Are you serious?
Go, yeah, there's something big right down there. Go.
Run?
Go, go. I don't know if you should run. Just go. Here, let me go. Okay, yeah, go, 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 go. It's like a big black freaking... I didn't think there were bears out here, but that was big.
Run?
And look, there's an edge. It could be right. We can't see it. Go, 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 go.
Fortunately, they reached their car in time and were able to leave the area safely. And to watch more intriguing encounters like these, just watch this next video.